Hello and welcome to my channel. This is going to be a video on why I like the horror genre. So when I say horror genre, I mean movies, games, uh, I guess some figures that come from the different brands of horror. Um, for me, it's a weird kind of broad term that just makes things much more interesting. So the different franchises, or the earliest franchises that I can recall ever getting into, were the Hellraiser franchise, Resident Evil, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, The Thing, and It. Uh, they've been the franchises that kind of opened up different aspects for me in what I like to watch. Um, there's a wide variety of classifications to these kinds of movies. There's good horror, bad horror, satirical horror, uh, so bad that it's funny, or just so bad that people just really look at it and go, "What the heck is this?" Uh, the broad span of what's featured in horror is, I've said it before, I love variety. So having like monsters, aliens, or humans that just have either an unnatural or uncanny ability to survive things, ranging from just a standard human that has horrible intentions to all of a sudden they have a contract with a demon, or they're infected with a virus. Zombie movies are definitely a huge one for me, especially when you look at how the characters interact. Um, and from horror, the series has been expanded by movies, games, or various series have been expanded by those, and figures in comics. Uh, as far as why I like them, I mean, designs, whether it's the character designs, the monsters, um, or if you're looking at like stories, it can be a revenge of some poor character or some species that came to Earth and was treated wrong, or was put into a science experiment along those lines. The other fun part to horror for me is the I guess it would be the what's known as typecasting or stereotypes for characters. You have your jock, you have your uh, how to phrase this without feeling insensitive, the not so there mentally character, the idiot or the goofball. You have your protagonists. There's a term that's been keyed in for a long time now called the final girl. Uh, that kind of thing. It definitely helps me just get more into just how many characters match similar styles, and how they play off different characters, or sometimes location kind of helps. If I'm watching a horror movie that's based in a more like large city, I expect to see more people around, more of that dialect from that area. So like East Coast versus West Coast versus the Midwest, or you go into any of the foreign countries and you expect to hear those different tones. Uh, those help me with a lot of this, and it makes it more fun for me to be able to really dive into the movie and just watch it for what it is rather than trying to take it apart. However, there is a movie that's very well famous for highlighting and it all these different aspects, and it's satirical, but it still has its effects of, well, we know these characters are going to die, but we're not sure how it's going to happen. We're watching this story play out as they dive into and break down the stereotypes of horror. And the movie that I'm referencing there is The Cabin in the Woods. It's probably one of my favorite movies in general, just because of how nonsensical it gets. Um, the other thing I kind of want to cover is the large franchises that come from these, right? So I kind of mentioned a lot of them, or a good handful of them earlier, between Hellraiser, Resident Evil, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, The Thing, It. There's a couple of franchises that I'm not sure if they'd be considered more sci-fi horror, sci-fi action with a little bit of a horror twist to them. So like Alien, the Alien franchise, or the Predator franchise, right? These and again Resident Evil. Resident Evil started off as a survival horror shooter, but it's grown into like an action or almost a spoof of a horror action. Um, and to kind of add to that is recently there's Godzilla minus one, which I think was a good start in going back to bringing these different aspects of Godzilla out. It feels like you're watching characters fight for survival. They're not just featured in a giant monster movie. They are the focus of it while they're trying to survive it. I know there was, oh, the name's going to escape me. It was another Godzilla movie that kind of, oh, Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla kind of brought out the horror aspect a little bit, and there's a YouTube channel that brought out the horror aspect in a way that was kind of, for me, it was fun and interesting. It, if you dig into it, it's really horrifying to see how that creature got there. Um, I think it was Bunker 52. I'll throw a link in my description, but they covered, or they told the story of a creature called Biolante from an attempt at realistic science, but also still a horror angle to it. It's kind of a fun video to watch. As for the different games, there's Dead by Daylight. I think Evil Dead had a game for a while. Friday the 13th had a game for a while. I don't know if there's been any Freddy games, so Nightmare on Elm Street, I don't recall seeing anything. Um, and another franchise I missed mentioning was Child's Play. Child's Play has a TV series, it has the movies. You go into, I think it's what, Spencer's Gifts or Hot Topic, and you'll see like a Chucky doll somewhere. It He's had his character and that franchise has had their own influence as well, um, and they all make for good entertainment and good discourse and discussion among like horror groups. Uh, I play tabletop games with my friends once a week, and every time we do, we bring up different movies that we like, and more often than not, at least one horror movie or adjacent to what would be horror comes up, and I think it brings a fun discussion in that, just like with action movies, just like with romance or comedy. I'm not huge into romance or comedy. Action's kind of, it's dependent if it's cheesy, goofy action, but I'm not gonna really cover that in its own separate video because I'm not huge on it so much as there are certain franchises from action that I like. Um, but I went off topic on a tangent there, and back to my original point is horror has gained a lot more traction than I would have ever expected it. You have realistic, you have hugely sci-fi, you have some more psychological horror, and then you just have goofy like a movie about killer tomatoes or a killer tire or what was it, Black Sheep, where it was a flock of sheep that would just cannibalize humans, and then if you were bitten by them but survived, you would turn into a sheep. Which the special effects for that range from what the heck were they doing to oh no, thank you, I'm done, I don't want to watch this. Um, it makes it more fun when you have those different ranges. When you just have CGI nonstop and no practical effects, it kind of ruins. At least for me, it ruins the telling of the story unless it's very convincing CGI that doesn't just look at like it's slapped in there, right? Um, and a good example of that is the different the Thing movies. So you have your very limited original The Thing movie. You have your practical effects and the hilariousness of the practical effects from that movie. And then you have your, I think it was meant to be a prequel. It's been a second. Yeah, the second movie that came out in the 2000s was meant to be a prequel, but it was kind of a sequel. But it was setting up. Yeah, I hate timelines sometimes. But anyway, the CGI from that is so overly cartoony that it feels like it lost its authenticness in it. And I kind of wish they had stuck to more practical effects with a little bit of CGI in to tie it together. But that's, again, that's me. I think it's a discussion for a different video. Um, but that kind of discourse comes up and it makes it more fun for a group setting. Unless everybody in that group doesn't like horror movies, then it's a different story. Uh, there's been a couple of foreign horror movies that have definitely helped elevate as well. Uh, one of the There's a Japanese horror movie that really helped bring out the horror franchise to me. It's called The Slit Mouthed Lady, or I want to say it's. I know I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize. Kuchisaka One. Uh, God, I should have looked that up and wrote down notes on it before I started this. But the slit mouth lady is a good foreign horror movie that definitely revitalized my love for horror and kind of brought it up to another level. Um, the Ring was definitely a huge one, or I think it was called Ringu, an original translation. Again, I'm probably going to get burned at the stake for this, so my apologies now. Um, but that's kind of been the fun, is exploring not just American horror. There's good foreign horror movies and franchises, and I think when we get down to it, it's all again personal tastes. Um, but that's kind of my thought process. Now, as far as one of the big ones that really stuck to me. I was a young man who, I say young man, I was a kid that had played probably one of the earliest versions of Resident Evil, and when they announced that the movie was coming out, a family friend of ours caught wind of me being curious about it and being excited about it, and he offered to take me and my brother to go see it. Um, Little kid me loved it. Adult me still loves it because of the nostalgia that comes with watching the movie, even if it has its flaws, because of that. And the funny part is, young me wasn't even bothered afterwards. I we went out to dinner and then grabbed ice cream on the way back, and it was just a fun experience for me. And I feel like I really don't get that much these days. It feels like horror has dialed back on the storytelling or the sticking true to what its intent is. And I'm seeing some horror movies come out that are very good, well written horror movies. I don't know if Sinners would be considered a horror movie, but it has some horrifying moments, and I definitely enjoyed that. I might do a video paying respects to that. But yeah, that's my really overly long ramble about horror movies. Um, if there's franchises that anybody wants me to check out or go into depth, or anything that they think would be a neat highlight, feel free to comment. If you like hearing me ramble like an idiot for anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes about something, feel free to subscribe. Uh, I appreciate any support, feedback, or engagement regardless. Thank you very much, and farewell.